Hi, I'm Matt with Main Street Medina, and welcome to another edition of Medina Minute. Today we're going to sit down with a couple friends and familiar faces from around the city of Medina and learn a little bit more about them and what makes Medina, Medina. Kevin McManus, my friend for many, many years now. We've never really sat down and had this conversation.
I don't think so. No. Thanks for having me, though.
We are, absolutely. So Kevin, first and foremost, born and bred in Medina, this hometown?
Yeah, born at Medina General and went to Heritage Elementary for a time, Fenn, Claggett, Medina High, and then went to Akron U. And then the first gig I had out of college was working at a newspaper here in Medina. And
nice.
Then I blinked and it seems like a decade went by, so I'm still here.
Decade or more. Growing up, so we should say you were with Medina Weekly News.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, did you think you were going to be a journalist? Were you into writing? How did that evolve?
No, it wasn't the goal, honestly. Okay. You know, I wasn't necessarily the most motivated student. I didn't really thrive in school, so I mean, like, I never really had much of a plan, but you know, media has always had a bit of a presence in my family. Both my parents and my brothers work or have worked in media at different times. So I figured journalism was something that if I ended up finding a job in it, I could probably have some fun. But sure. I was often steered away by educators and advisors of like print's dead. You know, you don't want to get into print.
Really?
Yeah, and I understand that perception being in the industry now, where it's tough to break into and it's tough to sustain, and it's tough to sustain as an organization.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really the goal, but I just kind of fell into it.
All right. What was the goal? As a kid growing up, what did you think you were going to be? You're going to be like a rock star, which you are. We'll get into that in a minute. A fireman, a ballerina, what? All
of that. I mean, I was a very ADD, ADHD kid, still am in a lot of ways. So very, very creative sort of brain, and at various times I wanted to do any number of things. But I mean, to be honest with you, I never really have had a plan. I've always just kind of gone with the flow, and
and you've
to be
done
honest,
very well.
Well, thank you.
No, and many people do that. Have you always stayed around the area? You said Medina, Akron?
Yeah, when I first, obviously I was born and raised here, but when I first started working in the community, I was still living in Akron at the time. I went to school at Akron U.
Okay.
And then I moved to Medina for several years and was living in the community. Mm-hmm. And I decided that I needed a little bit of a buffer.
Sure. Because
when I was living and working here, it was hard for me to turn it off. And I was very, very immersed in the work that I was doing, and I found that, you know, I do need a little bit of a buffer. But so I don't live in the community anymore, but happy to serve it in this capacity.
Yeah, very cool. Mm-hmm. You're also a semi-famous musician. Do we say famous yet?
No.
Are you world-renowned?
I'm a working musician.
A working musician.
Correct.
You're very fortunate to be a working musician.
Especially considering everything we went through. Yeah.
How did you? Were you like a band geek in school? How did you get into music?
No, I had two friends growing up. One was a guitar player, and one was a drummer. Yeah. Okay. And you know, of course, they needed a bass player, and we were, you know, junior high, and we started playing punk rock in garages, and taking that into high school and trying to, you know, started to get into play clubs and that kind of thing. And I was always way more serious about it than my first cohorts in that. And I've just have always kind of stayed in the mix and just tried to get gigs wherever I could. And I've been performing since I was a little kid. But you know, in school I was involved in like talent show related things, and I liked being in front of people and liked entertaining people. You know, so it just kind of came naturally, and I'm fortunate to still be doing it and making records and playing around the country. It's great. I love doing it.
So you have a band currently?
Yes,
Is
I
it
have
your
a couple
band
groups.
Or you're part of the band?
There's two groups I play with. A group called the Outside Voices, which is based in Kent.
All right.
We've been together about 6-7 years now. I play bass and sing backup vocals in that band, and then I play in a group called the Buffalo Riders, which they're based in Akron. Mm-hmm. And I play bass and sing backup vocals in that, and that's relatively a new thing for me. I started playing with them pretty much the beginning of this year, and we just put out a record in July.
Two totally separate sounds?
Yeah.
Compare the Outside Voices to I like Buffalo Riders. I'm just feeling like classic country, but hip and funky and...
The Outside Voices is kind of more in the vein of like Rolling Stones and very kind of laid back pocket sort of rock and roll. Buffalo Riders is a little more like Black Sabbath-y, a little more heavier, but still very melodic. You know, we're not like yelling at you kind of thing, but put on a good show.
Very cool.
Yeah,
what's your favorite place to play?
My favorite place to play? Oh man, that's really tough.
Or what are some of your favorites? You've traveled the country. Where have you gotten to go and
weirdly enough,
share your talent?
I think my favorite place that I've worked is Appleton, Wisconsin. Which
there?
Okay, so Appleton is sort of south of Green Bay and it's north of Milwaukee. It's a place that often gets overlooked by a lot of touring groups.
Yeah.
So Appleton, Wisconsin is this very interesting downtown area that is about a mile or so stretch that has just bars and concert clubs pretty much like every step of the way. And they had the foresight to put together a festival called Mile of Music that they do every late July, early August. And it has evolved into this just oasis for like indie underground music, and this town has really gotten behind it. They've gotten, these sponsorships that are needed to do something like this. All the business owners are involved and supportive of it, and it's beautiful. And so it's a market that I've returned to work many times, and cool. How Wisconsin people are. They're very friendly and very welcoming, of course. And I think my favorite.
I don't know if you're sarcastic or not.
No. I mean, so
it's they embrace this.
Yes, and they're very Midwestern friendly. But I think my favorite club I've ever played, and we've talked about it, is the Adelphia Music Hall in Marietta, Ohio.
Such a cool
Marietta
place.
has a great Main Street program like we do in Medina. Yeah. Very similar kind of vibes, but that is one of the coolest places I've ever played. I love Marietta.
Cool. Someday maybe we'll have that here in Medina.
We've talked about that.
We have
I would love to get something like that going here.
How has this town changed in your lifetime? What have you seen it evolve?
Well, so my parents have been here since like 80s, and they got here at a time when a lot of young parents were moving to Medina and having kids. Sure. So growing up, it was a dream because there were kids everywhere, and everything was connected by sidewalks in the neighborhood we grew up in. And thinking back to what Medina was and then what it is now, there's a lot of woods that we used to play in as kids that are now neighborhoods. And you look at the square was always beautiful and had some events, but it wasn't the destination that it is now. Yeah. I mean, it is really blown up into this cool, hip place to be. And I think that that's just wonderful. And I've seen that firsthand, both having grown up here and having worked in the community and really seeing that evolution. And a lot of the new developments and the redevelopments, I mean, it's really exciting to see. I don't think, and again, I was a kid at the time, but I don't think there was as much of an emphasis on that at that time. But I do remember the square as it was when I was a kid, and it was just like, okay, yeah, it's pretty. But maybe there'd be like art in the park or something like that, but there wasn't like there was something going on every weekend like Main Street's doing.
I love that you called us hip.
It is.
Few people would do that.
I mean, it really is, though.
Yeah. Do you consider your music your professional career or journalism?
Journalism is what pays the bills, the majority of them at least. Okay. Music is just something I have to do. Yeah. It's just something that it's very much, if I don't do it, I get a little cranky.
Okay. Fair enough.
But, I mean, it's nice that I can have both of those worlds where I can be creative and telling stories in a way, and also being very public. That's something I've never really shied away from. I think I've always been the type of person that likes to have an audience, and so both sides of my life really appease that, and I think it's really cool. I'm very lucky.
In journalism, how do you use your audience to affect change? Because you have a very powerful voice in what you do.
Well, that's a very nice compliment. Thanks for saying that. But how do you affect change, I think, is...
Or how do you use your voice?
I really just try to pay attention to what is happening here. Obviously on a scale where most folks would and should be aware of, but also, you look at the stories that other people otherwise might not ever hear. I mean, it's such a cheesy thing to say, but everybody really does have a story. Sure. And the way Medina Weekly News is set up, I mean, we're not a hard news publication. I spent a good chunk of my career doing that. Yeah. And what I love about Medina Weekly News is that we're more focused on human interest type things, and people profiles, and promoting what's coming up in the community. But I think a lot of the times it is focusing on those things that you don't know what your neighbor is up to, and look at him, he's on stage in a community theater production, or your mailman is an amazing sculptor. There's stuff like this everywhere. I run into like authors and musicians and people I had no idea were living in Medina. I mean, it's sometimes it's a lot looking in between what the obvious stories are.
That's cool. If you, with your bands, either one, if someone said, all right, Kevin, here's the credit card, just book your dream tour, where are you taking the band, or where is it that you want to go?
Gosh, I'd like to do like a nice lap around the United States and really spend a lot of time in the Southwest.
Okay.
I really enjoyed playing out there, and I like being out there. And there's some of the highlights of my life, honestly, are driving along I-5, the Texas-Mexico border at like sunrise kind of thing, and just feeling like, wow, like we're really far from home. And this just doesn't look like anything that I know. I don't know. I would love to get around the world as well, obviously, but I think there's something special about rock and roll music in the United States, and I like touring around here. Haven't had the opportunity to go overseas yet, but I'm sure I would still be a rube over there as well, you know what I mean?
That was honestly the answer I thought I was going to get from you, that you would like to do a tour of the pubs in England, Ireland, and Scotland.
Well, that sounds great too. I mean, I would do that,
What do you do? Do you have spare time? Like, do you have hobbies outside of work and music? What do you do to just chill out and be Kevin?
I like to fish.
Really?
Yeah. It's weird. It's a weird thing. Like I really only do like 3 things. Like I do newspapers, I play in music groups, and I like to fish. And if I'm not doing any of those things, I'm probably on my couch with my cats.
Do you cook the fish, or you
No.
just like to catch them and release them?
No, I like the angling aspect of it, and also it forces you to pay attention to ecosystems and the environment. And
Sure.
I mean, it's not just about fish and their habitats. I mean, you start paying attention to the weather and what birds are doing and what vegetation is growing. And I've never really been so much of a scientific sort of brain. So for me, it's very stimulating, and it's one of those things. It's like music and it's like writing, where my brain kind of just shuts off when I do it in a way. You know what I mean? Where you're not really thinking about other outside factors.
Are you a dock fisher or boat fisher?
Both, yeah.
Yeah. Just whatever. Just gotta get fish.
I don't have a boat, so I usually have to depend on the kindness of friends, But I do enjoy it. Yeah.
So as a kid, you would run through the woods in Medina, and then
Oh yeah.
were you in the scouting program? Like, did you go through the whole outdoor woodsman type thing?
No.
Or is it just part of growing up here?
It's just part of growing up here. Just like going through the creek, trying to catch like crayfish, frogs, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But my brothers and I, we were deeply involved in athletics. Like we were very much a sports family, and my brother Tyler, he still works in sports. He's a coach for Detroit City FC soccer team up there, professional soccer team. And my brother Matt, my oldest brother, he actually works in television producing sports-related features.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So sports is a big deal. It's still, but like we were really athletic kids. But I didn't get to do scouting.
What was your sport as a kid? What did you do in school?
Oh man, like we were a big soccer family. I didn't really excel at that, but I played soccer, baseball, football, hockey, wrestling. I was into wrestling for a while. Okay. Yeah, we were all involved in a lot of sports because like that was a thing. Our parents said, well, you have to do a sport.
Yeah.
So we did a bunch of them.
So was your dream ever to be WWF, like Kevin the Terminator or something?
No, I would have loved to have.
Who would you have been?
Batted cleanup for the Cleveland Indians in the 90s, or the Guardians now. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I wasn't the most gifted athlete, that's for sure.
Do you like the name change to the Guardians? Does it fit more?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
They didn't change the Cleveland part of the name.
That's true.
Guardians wouldn't have been my first choice, but I don't think it's my place to really say whether or not Indians should have sustained or not.
Yeah, true.
But again, they didn't change the Cleveland part of the name.
Still says Cleveland, it makes it okay.
I just want to see October baseball. That's where I'm at. And if a name change makes some people more comfortable, I'm very okay with that.
Yeah. Last question. When you have guests from out of town or musicians visiting you, what's your quintessential Medina hit list? Like, we got to go here, we got to eat here, we got to have a beer here, we got to see this. What defines this town that you tell people?
Well, I'd probably go get a beer at JoJo's and probably a burger, because I've been going there forever, since I was a kid. Spent a lot of time there. Corkscrew is another favorite of mine as well. Chef Ryan Marino, he's a great guy, great friend, and I love the stuff he comes up with. And I think he's on the brain right now because it's clam bake season. He does a hell of a clam bake.
Yeah. Right.
I would definitely show folks Public Square and kind of everything that we got going on, and head down to the Farmers Exchange redevelopment, Exchange Market. Hit up Medina Brewing Company, some of the vendors that are there. Farmers Table's awesome as well. A little bit of the new and the old, I think I would like to show folks, because it's hard to really describe to somebody who hasn't been here for a long time how much this community has changed and evolved, and it's really beautiful to see and to be a part of.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Kevin, thank you for your time today. I appreciate always sitting down and chatting with you.
Oh, of course. Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I look forward to seeing what you do next, my friend.
Likewise, man.
Thank you.